And now, if I may, I'd like to come in with my dear friend and supporter, Eugene Kaspersky. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone.
It's so lovely to have you. You are speaking from Russia.
Yes, in Moscow, in the office, company office, and company HQ.
We just had a little chat before we start on business. How are things out there? How's the COVID crisis affecting you? How are people getting on? Are you back to work?
Well, actually, we managed to relocate the office, all the employees home without any problem. And actually, we were very lucky. We made the plans a few weeks before the lockdown, so we were ready for all that. And actually, the company is performing very well. For example, our R&D, the products development, is getting better than in the office. So we're thinking about that. Maybe we will keep our R&D at home. So actually, we can measure that. So we see how much of the lines of the code they deploy, how much of functionality they provide, and how many bugs they fix. So it's plus 7% of productivity. So actually, the company works better at home. It's a good news. The bad news is that cyber criminals, they're also working very hard from home, and we see more attacks and more criminal activity in the internet.
And what about society out there? How are people getting back to work generally? Is the economy getting back on its feet? How's the epidemic doing out there?
Well, actually, that's in Russia and in Moscow. It seems that everything is under the control, so it's not too bad. So Moscow is like living their normal life, but still the offices are just partly open. So we let our employees to work from home till the new year. We'll see how it's working, how it's going on. But well, actually, that's what I see around me is that the life is getting back to normal.
Eugene Kaspersky, a giant on the global stage, certainly as far as cybersecurity is concerned, and I think in many other ways as well. Remember, I know you, our audience doesn't. Tell us your story, sir. How did you get where you are? Where did it all start?
I think that's the major change in my life, and the major the most important person who made me, that's my mother. She recognized that when I was a child, she recognized that I love mathematics, and she started to feed me with the kids' mathematical books, and she turned me to the mathematical way. And I was quite smart in math, and I was a winner of the school, the regional, we called it the kids' Olympic Games in math. So I got to the mathematical college. Then I had graduated as a cryptologist in Academy of Cryptographics. It was military, but I failed as a cryptologist, so I became the software engineer. And then it was just a coincidence that my computer was infected. It was in 1989, 31 years ago. So that changed my life. So I got in love with computer viruses, to disassemble them, to reverse engineer, to understand the logic of computer viruses. That was a very easy time. Actually, there was no cyber crime at all. It was just the hooligans, the vandals, the kids developing these little toys to play with the computers. And then step by step, the life got more complicated because there were more and more malware developed, more complicated malware. So I made the first product, and step by step, actually no revolutions. It was quite a slow evolution of the product of the company, which we registered in 1997. Then we made the best scanning engine. So we are, and we're still the best in detecting the malware. And we got a global company in early 2000. So this is the way I'm here. And I like to travel. I like this. I like to fight with the bad guys. I like to fight to fight with the malware to save the world. to protect the good people from the bad stuff in the cyber world.
And well, we come from the same generation. The only difference is that you're now rich and famous, and I'm still here. But one of the things that struck me when I've heard you talk in the past was that very thing about, I mean, saving the world sounds quite a trite thing to say, but you do believe that there is a fight here to make the internet a safe place for everybody. Could you just talk to us about that passion? I know it's something that's deep inside you.
Yeah, and actually it's not just some funny words. Actually, this is the way of my life, and actually I believe it's really important because we are living in a cyber world, and we don't really realize how much we depend on cyber. It's everywhere around us. It's not just computers, it's not just the Internet of Things. It's everywhere. It's the power plants, power grid, transportation, healthcare. It's everywhere around us. And unfortunately, all the systems, they are vulnerable, and they are victims of the hackers attacks, of the criminal attacks. And actually now we just, most of the bad guys, they attack the individual computers and smartphones, the office networks, but they're moving into the physical infrastructure. They're slowly shifting to attack the physical world, and this is getting very. It's one of the critical issue because we are living in a cyber world, which is vulnerable. And it's true, it's really saving the world because we need to protect it. Because what can happen if the bad guys decide to attack the critical infrastructure, for example, the urban facilities, the power grids, the transportation? Unfortunately, it's not a science fiction; it's reality.
You talk about the criminal. One of the areas that I know the world should and is becoming increasingly concerned about is nation state upon nation state. Do you see that as a danger, a growing danger? What's your, where do you sit in the global seat on that particular issue?
Speaking about the state-sponsored cyber attacks, actually there are two categories of that. The state-sponsored espionage. Well, actually, the espionage, they did exist, it does exist, it will exist. So that's not new. It's just made by with the new technologies, a different way. And the cyber weapons and the cyber wars. So I believe that the real cyber war between nations, it will never happen because the cyber weapons and cyber war is kind of boomerang. It's very easy to copy paste. It's easy to disassemble. It's easy to understand the logic of the cyber weapon and create the same. Even if you don't have abilities to do it yourself, or the nation doesn't have abilities, they can employ hackers. It's easy. So it's kind of, cyber weapon is kind of boomerang. It will get back to you. So I don't believe that the states are so stupid to start the true cyber war. But what I believe what is possible, it's some other powers which are not under the control, which are anonymous. We don't know who they are. To employ their professional hackers and to develop cyber weapons and to use the cyber weapons. So it's kind of the cyber terrorism. So I believe that this scenario is very possible.
So sort of guerrilla warfare rather than anything else.
Yes. Yeah.
And how are we doing on the fight against cyber criminals? How do we feel? We're spending more and more money. Are we making progress? We seem to be spending more and more money, but the gap between us and them seems to still be getting bigger.
Well, actually, yes and no. There are different kinds of cybercrime. The most of the cyber criminals, they are, let's say, it's a junior guys. So they're not so much professional. And the problem is that they generate a lot of the malicious stuff. So every day we collect about 400,000 new malicious files, unique malicious files, the files which we never saw before. every day 400,000. It means that there could be 100,000 of criminals, but it's mostly junior. And actually, technically speaking, it's not a big problem because we have the automatic system is based on the machine learning algorithms to analyze this stuff. So we can recognize what the new files, which is good, which is bad. And it's automatic. It's not a big problem, technically speaking. The problem is that many of these junior criminals, if they are not arrested, they become more professional. They are learning. They are able to create more and more professional attacks, and they join the professional hackers teams. This is a really problem because they're able to develop such attacks which can hack even the very well protected enterprises like banks, like governments, organizations. And this is the problem because to fight with professional criminals, it's hard. It's possible, but we need to develop the new technologies. We need to develop new products. Actually, it's more difficult, more hard to manage these extra layers of protection. But it's possible, but it's more complicated. And the real problem is that many of these professional criminal gangs, they are available, so they are mercenaries. So they will do, you pay, they will do what you want. Actually, this is a real issue in the cyberspace. So
crime as a service.
Crime as a service. It's not the news, actually. Many years ago, in the early 2000s, there were some criminal gangs. They had the websites. They were promoting the malware they create. They had the technical support, so they had discounts, they had the price list, discounts. A couple of times I've heard the cyber criminal gangs, they had a partner conferences. It was early 2000s. They were, then the cyber police were not so experienced. So they had, and there were pictures available. Well, it was cyber criminal conference.
Can I come back to this issue about making the internet safer for all? I'm not sure you did it yourself justice when you answered it the first time. I remember you talking about this when we were back in Jersey some years ago, and you were talking about it needs to be a place that's safe for everybody to visit.
Yeah, and actually this year by year the situation is changing. Say like 10 years ago, the industrial security was not an issue. The industrial systems, they were not so much connected to the networks. But all that changed. When I was speaking about the safe place, internet safe place 10 years ago, it's not the same like now. Now we're living in a world which is everything is connected. So we're in the same networks with our pocket smartphones, with our notebooks, with the office networks, with industrial systems, Internet of Things. And in the future, it will be more because we'll have more and more stuff which is connected to the Internet. The issue is that we're able to develop security solutions for your personal gadgets. But to develop the security solution for Internet of Things, the antivirus for coffee machine, for vacuum cleaner, for the fridge, it's simply not possible. There are thousands of these devices. So when I speak about the Internet as a safe place, we need to change the way we do that. And actually, this is not the same. 10 years ago, I was speaking a little bit different things. Now I see that the new technologies, the new ideas how to design the immune systems. This is the only way how to save the world.
And in terms of IoT and artificial intelligence and machine learning, what's the role of those in helping us to protect ourselves and our organizations?
Yeah, and well, actually, that's the two different questions: the Internet of Things and machine learning systems or artificial intelligence. Well, actually, honestly speaking, we are maybe 100 years away from a true artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a system which is able to solve unpredictable tasks or answer unpredictable questions. What we have At the moment, it's just machine learning system designed for some particular tasks. And speaking about machine learning, now it's one of the most important components of the modern cybersecurity. So we have it in-house to analyze the new malicious stuff. And we have it at our customer side to protect the networks, to protect the enterprise networks from the targeted attacks, from the highly professional targeted attacks. So we do it, and we are working on the machine learning for many years. But at the same time, it seems that some criminal gangs, cyber criminals, they also have mathematicians. So they're also creating the machine learning systems to behave in the networks in a very smart way. So I'm not sure. So we don't have the hard data about this. But I got the reports from my experts that some criminal behavior looks like it's automatic algorithms, which are using machine learning. So actually, so machine learning, unfortunately, is used by both parties, by the good guys and bad guys.
You are one of our supporters. You are inside our circle of trust. I have a large number of our members sitting here today. I would just encourage, if anybody out there has got a question they want to ask Eugene, then do post it, and we'll sift those out. We talked about malware, the future of malware. I mean, it started off in the old days as toys, as fun, as the hacker in the bedroom. What's changed? What's remained the same? What's the motivation now of the hackers, and where are we headed? Do you understand what I'm trying to get at here? The world has changed completely in terms of malware, its function, and its you know what I'm asking.
Yeah, well, actually, if you're speaking about the malware, let's better split it into the two categories: the cybercrime and state-sponsored espionage. For the cyber criminals, it's still the same motivation: money. Oh well, let's say cyber criminals, they have three motivations. First of all, money. Second, more money. And third, even more money. So that's a major motivation for cyber criminals. The kids, the script kiddies from 90s, they almost don't exist anymore. And by the way, it's a good question. Why the kids, they don't develop the script kiddies toys that we were fighting with in 90s? I think the reason is online games. Kids don't write computer viruses anymore. They play computer games. So they were replaced with the cyber criminals. This motivation is money. Well, and espionage, it's obviously they're searching for information.
Where are we headed? Is it just more of the same? Are the more and more sophistication in the malware?
Yeah, well, actually, what's the major changes are the numbers of cyber criminals in this business and how much of the malware they develop. So we see that the constantly increasing number of the malware, especially in the COVID time. Well, last year we were collecting about 350,000 new malicious files every day. 350. Now about 400,000 every day. So actually the criminal activities increased by 20–25% in developing the malicious code and in well, what we see from this our sensors, the hackers attacks, the network, malicious network traffic, and etc. etc. So it's increased during the COVID time. So it's constantly increasing, and at the same time there are more and more professional hackers which are joining the professional hacking, the criminal gangs, and they're able to develop more and more complicated malware, malicious attacks. Well, actually, the professional criminal gangs, they didn't exist, say, 7–8 years ago. They didn't exist. That time, when I was speaking about different kinds of malware, I said that, okay, so there is a highly professional state-sponsored attacks, highly complicated. And the criminals, they are not so important, there's much less. Starting from 2014, 2015, it changed. We saw the very first highly professional criminal gang, Carbonac, if you remember this name. So that was a gang which were active for about 2 years, and we estimate that within these 2 years, they had about $1 billion stolen from the bank's accounts. 1 billion. Because the banks, they lost a lot of money because of this hackers activity. So they were professional so much that they were able to hack banks' networks. They got very deep into the bank networks, and they were managing the bank. They were transferring money. They were creating the fake bank accounts. They were printing the fake credit cards. They were managing the ATMs, the street ATMs. They were releasing cash from the street ATMs. And that was just one gang. Now there are dozens of highly professional gangs, and actually this number is increasing. So unfortunately, the trend is that the number of criminals is growing, the population, and unfortunately, cyber police is not so effective to control the population of cybercrime, and many of them, they're becoming more professional. So, and obviously, the next step is they will turn their attention to the Internet of Things and industrial systems.
We've seen massive changes in only the last 6 months in the way that we all work, and in fact, the way we all live. This is, a lot of our members have talked about the acceleration of change as a result of the COVID crisis. In terms of digital transformation and the changing in the ways that we work with the cloud, the automation of security operations, obviously supply chain is a massive issue as well. What can we learn from the pandemic? What can we learn from digital transformation? What do you think are the important ways that we need to change to help protect ourselves from the crims?
You're absolutely right. That the pandemic didn't change the world, but accelerated the world. Many individuals and businesses learned how to work online. Many enterprises, they accelerated the plans for digital transformation. Many industrial systems, the production lines, the factories, they think about the remote control on the industrial systems. And actually, what I believe that this COVID crisis will be over very soon. The world will get back to normal, the same way as it happened 50 years ago with the Hong Kong flu, if you remember. So we don't remember that because, okay, so that was issue for a couple of years and that was over. So the world will get back to normal, but little bit different because we learned how to work online. So we will use the online communications much more than before. And it's not just about individuals. It's not only about the conferences. It's about the rest of the world as well. Well, actually, my experience is that during this COVID time, we got more and more requests from the industrial sector about industrial security, how to guarantee the engineers managing the remote systems, which could be 1,000 kilometers away. Well, and this is the main issue. And the thing is that when we speak, if we're speaking about the individual security or office security, we can estimate the risks. We can estimate how much you're about to lose if you're under hackers attack. If we speak about industrial systems, if we speak about transportation or healthcare, actually the damage is unpredictable. There couldn't be the human lives, as has just happened in Germany. Did you see the news about this the incident in a German hospital? Then one of the person died because they were not able to do the work because of the hackers attack. So actually, this is the cost of the hackers attack. In this way, in this case, it's very hard to balance the risks and security because the risks are too high, and that's why we're designing the systems which are immune. So how to guarantee that the systems which we use in industrial sector, especially with the remote control, the critical infrastructure, the healthcare, how to design them in such a way that they're unhackable. And technically speaking, it's possible to do. It's not the same. So we need to have more engineers. We need to have we spend more time, more resources on that, but it's possible to do.
And of course, the big difference between the industrial systems and office and personal is that the issues there are integrity and availability, whereas
yes.
Traditionally we've always focused on confidentiality. Is there any difference in the solution if you're protecting availability and integrity rather than just confidentiality?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, this is a major difference. For example, is that the technological processes, they are more important than cybersecurity. In the office, cybersecurity is more important than the business processes. So if because of the security, your printer delays for 1 second with the printing the paper, it's not a problem. But in the in the production lines, sometimes it's millisecond is important. So that's why it's changing the logic, and we need to adapt our security solutions for this different environment. And in some cases, especially when we speak about the critical infrastructure and Internet of Things, the traditional security is not enough. We need to change the systems, completely change the system and design it in a different way. And the difference is that traditionally, what do we have with cybersecurity? We have the operating system, we have the applications, and on the top of that, the security, watching what's going on there. My idea is different. So we have a security as a foundation, as a bottom line of the system. And all the communications between the operating system and applications, they're going through the security control. And every piece of the system is isolated. So it's completely different architecture of operating system, but it can guarantee that the system is unhackable. Even if there's some component of the system is hacked, it can't access the rest of the system. It's a little bit technical, but actually there are ideas and there are new architecture, new design of the cyber systems, which can guarantee, let's say it's unhackable. It's maybe a little bit there too much because everything is hackable, but we can guarantee the immunity in such a way that the cost of the hacker's attack is more than possible damage. So to attack such a system is more expensive than return on investment.
We're about halfway through our time. I could chat to you all day long. You are such an interesting guy. I'd like to, if I may, ask a couple of the questions that have come in. I need to declare that I'm nervous about becoming too controversial or too political on this debate. It's only the SASIG. So if any of these questions you find awkward or uncomfortable, then don't worry. But I know that Leon's come in and said that Russia is always mentioned in the cyber news, and it seems that everything is coming from Russia. What's your opinion on this? And other well-known nation states are also available in this conversation. Can you give us your views? And they'll be your personal views, I hope, or your professional views. But do you understand the question?
The data which we see is that the cybercrime, the junior cybercrime, is global. It speaks many languages, mostly Chinese, Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, Turkish, native English, broken English, many languages. The highly professional attacks, let's split it into two categories: the criminals and state-sponsored attacks. So the state-sponsored attacks also speak many different languages, but the most active, the three languages. I don't want to say nations.
No, I understand.
Attribution is very tricky thing in the cyberspace.
Yeah.
But we see the three major languages which are spoken by the most professional, most aggressive cyber espionage tools. It's native English and operates somewhere in the Atlantic time zone. Native Russian and operates the Eastern European time zone, and simplified Chinese, which is not too much active during the Chinese New Year. So this is three major. Speaking about the highly professional criminal gangs, all of them, most of them, they speak native Russian.
A question here from Phil Smith. How concerned are you and your organization about the deglobalization of antivirus products and the potential impact on global revenues? Australia is a case that have just signaled their
Actually, this is a very good question, and I don't really like this trend because we are fighting with the bad guys, the cybercrime, and they don't have this issue. So actually, they don't have borders at all, and this deglobalization of the cyberspace for the good guys, for the cybersecurity companies, and the more important for cyber police agencies. It's really bad. So actually this deglobalization, it makes happy only the bad guys.
Yeah.
They're more easy for them to find victims, to hack victims, and less risk. So it makes happy only the bad guys. At the same time, I see the a little bit different issue with this kind of deglobalization. It's not about technologies. It's not about the products and services. It's about the importance of data. And I don't want to say that, I don't want to call it balkanization or fragmentation, but we see the trend that the nations, they're more and more serious about keeping the data in-house. The data which now is collected from individuals, from businesses, it's getting so important. It's important as a critical infrastructure, and in the future it will be even more important. Let me explain in such a way. You are waking up, you make a coffee, you make a breakfast, and your coffee machine and your fridge ping the cloud. Our boss is waking up. So most probably, as usual, you'll need a taxi in 30 minutes, a car to get to your office. And in 30 minutes, the autonomous car is arriving without call and advise you that your neighbor is going to the same place, the same time. Do you want to share the same car with your neighbor? So it's all this data will be collected about everything. It's about individuals, it's about businesses, transportation, industrials. So the data will be so important, and I think that the governments, the nations, they want to keep this data in-house, not abroad, because it's too risky. So this kind of deglobalization it's normal, it's obvious, it will happen. And actually, we are, as a cybersecurity company, I'm very proud of that we understood that years ago, and we are moving in this way. So in the past, well, actually, all the cybersecurity companies which provide security services for their customers, they collect some kind of data because they see this malicious traffic, they see the malicious files, and they collect this data and they keep it in-house. So we decided, okay, so we will fragment the systems. So now we have the 2 processing centers, one in Moscow, in our HQ, and one in Switzerland, in Zurich. And in Zurich, we process all the data from Europe and Americas. And in the future, I think that we will have more such a processing centers. So we will not send any data abroad. And this is the way, I think that this is the new standard. And in the future, the IT companies, the cyber companies, they will be forced to keep the data in-house. What you collect in the country stays in the country. So this way of deglobalization, I think it's, well, it's normal. That's okay. It's not a problem with that. And this is the obvious way of the evolution of the cyberspace. The cyberspace is getting more complicated, more important, and the data is becoming more and more critical.
Could I just talk a little bit about policing and in the context of globalization? I think the question is, you know, you as an individual, you as one of the leading cybersecurity companies, with whom do you deal the most? Nationally, internationally? Are you keen to cooperate more with the policing national organizations, governments? You talk about it being a global problem. What's the conversation like at your level?
Yeah, actually, we have a very different kinds of customers. So it's individuals to the governments, to the industrial sector, to the production lines, to the factories. And in different regions, it's a little bit different. So in some countries, we are more successful in the consumer space. In some countries, we are more successful in the enterprise and industrial sector. But globally, like 50% of our business, that's consumer, and about 50% that's enterprise, governments, any kind of their organizations. Any kind, not just by the size of the organization, but by industrial sectors as well.
And what about the law enforcement globally? Are you seeing that's becoming more joined up?
That's a very painful question, because all the time I was speaking, well, 15, 20 years ago, I was speaking about the needs of the cooperation, joining the law enforcement, because the cyber criminals, they don't have borders. And for the successful investigations, we need the cyber police to cooperate with each other. And they were going in the right way. The last event, actually, it was London's cyberspace conference in 2011, and I was so happy to see when the presidents and prime minister, they were speaking about same things, like cooperation against the cybercrime, data sharing, etc., etc. And then, well, actually, that's the deglobalization and losing the trust. It's a very wrong and bad way, because who is happy? The bad guys, the criminals. The less risk, and we see the criminal gangs, which we observe what's going on there, and some of them, we have this data, they don't hack victims in the region, in the country. They only hack the victims in a different side of the planet.
What's the resistance there? What's stopping that happening better?
I have no idea. Unfortunately, it's if I were a god, of course, I will make these guys to get this cooperation back to normal. But unfortunately, it's not happening right now.
Well, we've got lots and lots of questions. I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, but remember, everyone, we've got our LinkedIn forum that we can continue this conversation on afterwards. And I'll talk to Eugene's team about contributing to that as well. But can I turn a little bit more now to Eugene, the individual? You know, come on, guy, you've got to be one of the richest men in Russia, one of the most well-known men in the world, in this world anyway. And yet your energy is never lessened. What gets you up in the morning? What drives you? What gets you going? What's still firing you?
Well, actually, it's design of my nature. I don't know. I still have some power, and this power is the energy. Maybe it's because the world is getting more and more interesting, and the job I do is getting more complicated. 20 years ago, we were fighting with the junior criminals. 10 years ago, we started to fight with much more complicated cyber attacks. Now we are speaking about industrial and IoT security. So the life is changing very fast. And being in the IT sector is just great, because it's one of the most interesting industries. Second, being in the cybersecurity sector, it's even more interesting, because we're not just creating new products and services. We are fighting with the bad guys. So we don't need to read detective stories. We write detective stories.
I'll quote you on that one. That's a fabulous quote. So make a note of that. I'll use that. Claim it as mine.
That's fine. And being a global company, it's an endless journey. Visiting the different regions, different countries, different culture, meeting the different people, learning about the world. It's just a great thing. Well, besides this short delay with the COVID pandemic, but I believe
I agree with you, sir. I have said this many times, all things pass, good and bad. Storms come to an end. We will come through this the other side, and strong people will survive, and unfortunately, organizations that aren't quite so prepared may struggle. We talked about you as an individual, we talked about what gets you going every day, but you are enormously successful. You are a charismatic leader. You are. It's a fact. What do you think are the important qualities of getting people to work so well on your team? What has made you reach the heights that your organization has? What are those key qualities of a good manager, a good leader? We've got a lot in our organization that would love to, in the SASIC, who would love to emulate what you've done, me included. What's the trick? What's the personal qualities that you think are most important in a leader?
I think it's a good question, and I think, I believe, well, actually, maybe it's better to ask my employees the same question. But I think that what I do, first of all, what I do very well is I'm searching for the right people. And I'm able to build the team of people which are thinking the same way, which are going the same way. Then the tasks which we are working on, they are crazy. They're super. They're so interesting that people just love to do that. And my motto is all the time: when the employees leaving the office, they have to think about the second day. And the employees waking up in the morning at home, they have to dream about getting back to the office. Oh, now to get back to computer, because the jobs which we have, the tasks which we do, the goals, they're increasingly interesting. They are profitable, and we are saving the world. We're making the world better.
What about your passions as an individual? I know you're a keen photographer. I see your name on red cars every weekend at the moment.
Yeah,
what do you do for fun, Eugene?
I think that's the fun for me is to travel to some unusual places, the most beautiful places on the planet, and enjoy it. Like this August, I spent in Altai Mountains in Russia. It's a very special place. It's not just the beautiful mountains, the glaciers, and the rafting on their extremely interesting rivers. But it's also some kind of energy coming from the ground. I don't know why, but you feel better. It's like the sky is more blue, the grass is more green, and you feel just better. And it's not just my opinion, that many people say the same. It's some strange place. There's nothing like this. It's nowhere. It's like some magnetic or some power coming from the ground. Why? I don't know. So I love this place. I've been there 3 or 4 times, and I'll get back in some years from now. So I like to travel, I like to enjoy the world, and I like to share the pictures which I do there, the stories which I have. So visit my blog, you will find the stories about that many places around. So I'm hiking, I'm rafting. Last January, I was driving the car in Namib Desert, some thousand kilometers of driving. I like it too. So I like to travel.
Wow. The future. I need to come back to our shared passion in cybersecurity. The future, a number of people have mentioned quantum security and quantum computing. Where do you see the technology leading in the future? Where are the areas that you think in 5 or 10 years' time we'll all be talking about?
Well, actually, what I see from there, but if I think about the future, first of all, we need to remember the past and all the new technologies which we design to make this world better. Unfortunately, they get to the wrong hands as well. And the bad guys, they use these technologies as well, like machine learning, which we use to protect the world, to protect our customers, and at the same time, the bad guys, they use it to create the problems. So let's thinking about the quantum computing. I think that will solve some security problems, some security issues, but at the same time, the bad guys, they will use it in the wrong way. So I think when I think about the future of the world, I don't think about new technologies which we'll have. I think about the design of the systems which we'll use. And when I think about what the world will look like in 10 years, 20 years from now, I think that we'll have much more cyber than now. We will live in a world which is almost automatic. So we will do, it's like, let me speak in a different way, little bit different way. Do you remember in the past, when you had the car, you were driving the car, you had no navigator? Do you remember that time?
Yeah.
Now, almost everyone has a navigator, even if you drive in your own city.
So, I remember cars when we didn't even have synchromesh gears, but that's a different story.
So in the future, I think that in the future, this kind of navigation will help us and assist us all the time with all our home devices in the office, in the traffic, in the cities, in the transportation systems, everywhere, production lines. It's everywhere will be almost automatic.
Where does privacy sit in that? Where
10, 20 years.
Sacrifice privacy?
Sorry?
As individuals, do we sacrifice our privacy for that nirvana?
Yes and no. To answer this question, let's look back to the past. When new technologies we use, we do something better, but we are losing some abilities. Like we're driving the car, but not many people know how to ride the horse.
Yeah.
Yes, losing this knowledge, but it's not bad. It's just a natural evolution of this world. So in the future, will be much more cyber, and most of the systems, they will be immune. The bad guys, they will not disappear, but it will be much more difficult to do the bad things, to do the crime in a future cyber world. I believe in that.
I have enjoyed this conversation hugely. Where we have been privileged indeed to have this time with someone who has your perspective, someone has your experience and knowledge of the industry as a whole. Your hilltop is so much higher than anyone else I know. You can see the global stage that we play on so clearly from the privileged position that you're in. I'm going to draw this to a close now by saying, where next for you, sir? Are we still going to be having, I'm going nowhere. Are we going to be having this conversation together in 10 or 20 years' time? We'll both be very old by then.
Yeah.
Are you happy sticking with what you're doing at the moment? Have you got any plans that will stop you being Eugene?
It's a good question, and I still have some dreams, still new projects. Well, honestly speaking, I like the life I live. It's not too busy right now because what takes me more is travel. Well, not right now, but couple of weeks ago we had the first real conference at the Black Sea. So we're allowed. In Russia, we're allowed to have the conference up to 100 people. So we had 100 people at the conference. It was about industrial security, by the way. So I like the way I live, travel, meeting people, discussing their issues, looking for solutions, creating the ideas, being at the conferences, meeting with our customers, with other experts. And it's all the time, it stimulates me. So I don't think that I will get retired soon. Well, of course, one day it will happen, but not this year and not next year, definitely.
And I feel the same. I think we may grow older on the outside, but I, for one, are getting younger inside. And I suspect that we're kindred spirits in that way. I can't imagine the cybersecurity stage without Eugene on it somewhere. So thank you, sir, so much for this time. I know that we've had a huge audience. It may not be as big as some of the conferences you go to, but it's the SASIG, and it's an audience of friends who I know have appreciated enormously the opportunity to learn a little bit more about you. I'm sorry we haven't been able to cover everybody's questions, but I've tried to get across most of the issues that you've raised. We will be in the LinkedIn forum afterwards. So Eugene, sir, and your team, thank you for arranging this today, and yourself. I wish you all the very best wherever this takes you. We will stay in touch, I hope. I'm going nowhere, and I suspect from your answer, neither are you.
Okay. Thank you.